We're talking about eating disorders. We're talking about this because the former Big Brother contestant, Nikki Graham, has passed away at the very young age of 38 because of an eating disorder, because specifically of anorexia. Her mum was saying that a lot of the problems came because of lockdown. She was being crowdfunded by friends. I think they'd raised about 70 grand to help with her treatment, but to no avail. She found the lockdown very, very hard. Apparently she'd suffered from eating disorders and anorexia for, goodness, 13 she was when she first had it, so you work it out. It's a very least understood mental illness, and I'm not trying to be unsympathetic at all when I talk about it. As I say, I've suffered from anxiety, from depression, from all these things myself. We're on a mission to explain and try and understand why people suffer from anorexia. What does it feel like? What's going through your head when this is happening? And is it curable in some sense? Is it curable in that you can take something to alleviate the symptoms, or is it really all in the brain? 0345 6060 973. I've had bulimia, says Helen, since I was 8. I'm desperate for help, but NHS resources are so poor. I waited 2 years from diagnosis for 8 one-hour sessions. That was 4 years ago. Now 48. It's worse than ever, and I'm resigned to thinking horrible thoughts day by day. As I say, the helpline numbers, if it's really serious, Samaritans 116 123, or the Beat helpline on this subject, 0808 801 0677. Let's speak to Rebecca, who's in Tottenham. Hello, Rebecca.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. What's happening?
I'm now almost 30. I started having eating disorder, anorexia, when I was around 16. What I kind of discovered about it is 100% what, I can't remember her name, sorry, it was due to the woman who was on before me. Was it Emma?
It was, yes.
Yeah, what she said about it being a mental illness, I 100% agree. It kind of is a mental illness that then manifests into an addiction, and for me, I had underlying anxiety issues. I was bullied at school. I wasn't big, but I've had shut on me, so to speak, and kind of got called names by some boys, and my mum ended up going to diet, and she lost a bit of weight, and I said, you know what the hell, I'll do it. And I started to lose weight, and with that came a rush of attention. Suddenly I was like I was 16, 17 years old, so I started getting attention from boys I had before. Some of my friends who were always pretty and always fit, I felt kind of in competition, and suddenly I started losing weight. But it became an unhealthy addiction where, as she said, you get these hunger pangs that are like, it's just, it's like a drug almost. And
So you get the hunger pang,
yeah,
but the feeling of trying to lose more weight and being even more attractive or desirable overtakes that urge.
yeah, because suddenly it becomes like for me, it was like I had a devil in my head. I used to look at I got to the point, I think it must have been, I don't know how long after, and I remember standing in my bathroom downstairs and screaming at myself, get out my head, I don't want you. But by that point, I'd become so addicted to the feeling of losing weight, and the thought of putting on weight petrified me. I ended up going to PAMS, which is through the NHS.
Going for what, sorry?
PAMS, it's called, I think it's Child and Adolescent Mental Health Services. It happens to be in the Royal Free.
Uh-huh.
And they initially got me started. I was almost hospitalised, and I got very scared. But the thing is essentially what has saved me has been having, and I felt very fortunately being able to go privately to which I know isn't always possible for people, and it hurts me, and I felt so bad hearing these stories, because I feel very blessed that I was able to find someone. I walked in and I kind of, my first session with her, I was like, I have anorexia, help me. And she's like, hey,
who's a food expert, who you could see, who could actually give you a plan that made you eat healthy, didn't put on weight or didn't lose weight, it wouldn't start affecting your mental health?
I think it's that. I think I had been to a few, and that did help initially, 100%. But it gets to a point, like I've been there for a few years, where I felt like they often want to wean you off it, and I feel at that point it's very scary. I feel like it's very important, mental health-wise, to have someone who you can talk to get to the underlying issue, because there always are underlying issues around it, and it is 100% a mental health illness. However, I don't know if I'm allowed to quote a book on here.
Sure.
So there's a book by Lexi and Kite and her twin sister Lindsay, I think. There's a book called More Than a Body, and it's basically it's an amazing book. And I have 2 daughters, and since having them, I've realized how social media and the world affect how women feel about their body so much that every single part of a woman's body is seen as a flaw. Whereas a man can have grey hair and kind of be called like a silver fox, whereas a woman to have that, like she's got to cover up, she's got to change her hairstyle, and constant. For me, what's helped a lot is by having certain boundaries. Like on social media, I don't follow a lot of celebrities. I don't follow people who have beauty regimes and who are kind of all about figures and beauty and perfection. It's kind of, for me, that's what helps me a lot, and kind of find out who I am and not compare. And I feel like this woman unfortunately passed away. It's such a shame, but being in the spotlight,
Makes it
and then
worse.
when you're already going through something as horrific as anorexia, to then be in the spotlight and feel like, I couldn't even imagine that. Because even now with my friends, if I put on weight, or even around my mum, I used to think, oh my gosh, everyone's looking at me, thinking that I put on weight, they must think I look enormous. Whereas often no one even was thinking that, or no one mentioned it, but there's the under the scrutiny of
I think that's one of the things we all, one of the 2 things I've learned in my life. I can't really, well, let's talk about this one that's relevant. The one thing I've learned in my life is that actually people aren't, you think people are really interested in you, you think people are obsessed with you, you think people are looking at you, and actually they're not. They're only interested in themselves and their own problems. I wish I had more time to talk, Rebecca. I've got to get to the news, but listen, you sound to me like you're dealing with it well, and make sure you give the right lessons to your children as well, particularly your daughters. So as I say, if you've got any worries about eating disorders, you can call the Beat helpline on 08 801 0677. The helpline is open from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. during the week, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. on the weekend, or if it's urgent, call the Samaritans on 116 123. Yeah, I mean, I remember when really bad things were happening to me, and I was sort of vaguely, not famous, but vaguely on the telly and all the rest of it. I was thinking, oh God, everyone must be thinking this and thinking that. They're not. They're only really worried about themselves. Our
insurance. Get a freebie from Domino's, Halfords, HelloFresh, or IMO Car Wash. I'm not confused. I'm confused.com. Available on single annual policies. HelloFresh 18 Plus subscription service. Geographical exclusions apply. For T's and C's online.
Home working. We've sat at kitchen tables, dining tables, even dressing tables. So make home working work for you with a new CCM Smart Desk. It'll raise and lower into any sitting or standing position you prefer to work from, all at the touch of a button. It's even
Duke himself helped design to be carried the short distance to St George's Chapel. Now, I'm assuming it will be televised. I'll be amazed if it wasn't. We know that Prince Harry is due, but Meghan isn't, because on the advice of her doctors, because she's quite heavily pregnant now, it wouldn't be safe. Right. Let's continue to talk about eating disorders. Nikki Graham, the former contestant on Big Brother, sadly died this weekend because of a continuing struggle against anorexia. And I'm just asking people to, A, try and explain what this is about, why people suffer from this, what is going on in the head when this is happening, and also to try and give us, if you come through any sort of eating disorder, what is the best coping mechanism, and what is the best, and I can't think of another word, cure. 0345 60 60 973. Let's go to Natalie, a new caller in Wembley. Hi Natalie, your daughter suffers from anorexia.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my call. Yes, unfortunately she does. I'd like to start by sending my sympathies to Nikki Graham's family and friends, and also to really thank Emma Wolf, who you had on earlier, with where she highlighted her book, Eating an Apple a Day. My daughter was diagnosed at the age of 13. She was 25 a couple of weeks ago, and has spiraled down throughout lockdown. So unfortunately, is about, I say hopefully, because we've got to find her a place.
Why has lockdown affected her specifically, Natalie?
So she's at university, and as the last caller explained, it's very much from what I've learned of the illness, living through it with her, it's the control element and stability and knowing, what your boundaries are, having routines. And by being at university and being the whole stop-start, you're learning online, you don't know when your term's going to start. And for her, she's got exams in 2 weeks' time, and she didn't know whether they were going to be online, whether she was allowed to go back into accommodation, and it was complete uncertainty that, we've obviously tried to help her manage, but it was that uncertainty together with stress, as in the stress of the exams, and a combination of the two, unfortunately, she's...
So have you been able to, as a concerned mother, Natalie, have you been able to sort of get inside your daughter's head and sort of hear why she's doing this, or does it remain difficult for you to comprehend?
I'll be honest, I've spent 13 years trying to really get...
No, that's very honest.
Genuinely, as in, I have read every book, I've spoken to every consultant, we've spoken to consultants in America, you name it, because you just think, well, there's got to be an answer, hasn't there?
Absolutely.
And no, I haven't found one yet, and I'm
because we all think
down the line.
The human nature is, if your body is crying out for supplement, you will do something about it. But people suffering from this don't.
No,
it seems to go against everything that's sort of, I don't know.
It does, but I would put it on a level with, it is, obviously it is a mental illness, a severe mental illness, but for a lay person, I would explain it as a form of addiction. So, whereby, be it nicotine, alcohol, or whatever, that when you get to that stress point, you crave it, and then once you start taking it, you want more. What makes it worse with an eating disorder is you then get to a point where you've got what's called body dysmorphia. So you get to a point where you've lost a proportion of weight, well, too much weight that is healthy, but you will look in a mirror and you will see yourself twice as big than you actually are. So that just compounds it even more. And then,
so what situation are you in now? You say you're still looking for some sort of help because she's still suffering and she's got worse.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're now in, as so many other people unfortunately are, it's NHS backlogs, in as much as the previous caller mentioned CAMS, which is an amazing service. to go to a private hospital, you're talking £1,400
Oh, yeah,
a day.
absolutely.
Unfortunately, I'm not in a position
Okay.
to pay £1,400 a day. So, you know, you are literally at the mercy of the NHS, which, I mean, to date, they have been amazing for us, but boy, you have to battle for it.
Right, well, I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll just in the last 15 minutes, I'm sure that you've tried everything, you've been thinking about this for so many years, you don't know whether there's a solution to this, or indeed if there is. But what I'll do is I'll just say in the next 15 minutes, if anyone out there has listened to what Natalie's had to say, if you've been through a similar thing, if your kids have been through a similar thing, you know something, you know, if you've got any advice, if there's anything that might help,